Before I start, just wanted to let you know that you should download this free image for the 12 days of Christmas color alongs. It's in the information box below. Hi, it's Dia. Welcome to day 2 of 12 days of coloring Christmas. Today I'm going to be using this set of 72 Schpirerr Farben colored pencils, and we're going to use this downloadable, if you haven't downloaded it yet, go ahead, downloadable image. And since it's day 2 of coloring, we're going to be coloring the Piper piping today. And let me lower the music a little bit. So our little Piper piping today. And the first color that I used, I'm doing his fingers right now. You see the little pinky up because he's being fancy while he's playing his flute. This is number 74. It's sort of a light flesh tone, and I am going to go a little bit darker, but this is how I'm starting out. And the second thing I'm doing after I fill in basically the arms, the hands, and his face is use that, it's almost like a dark burnt orange color. And I like to go over the skin parts that are going to be a little bit maybe in the shadows. That's number 67. On the barrel, it looks a little more orange actually than it is when you use it. So I colored the underneath parts of his arms, and I screwed up a little bit, and I got a little bit of that color on the flute. So I used this electric Sakura eraser, and it's pretty great. I'll link it below if you ever want to get it. It works really fast. You have to be careful if you just don't want to push too hard. But as you can see, it does remove colored pencil really well. So, like I was saying, I take this number 67, this sort of burnt, I was going to say burnt flesh color, but maybe burnt orange would be a better way to describe it. Now, here's one of those moments in coloring where I'm using that burnt orange color, and I'm going over his little nose a little bit, and then underneath his eyes, and sort of almost over toward his ears. I think there's only one ear that shows on this picture, but you get the idea. Where he would be flushed, and I made him a little bit flushed and blushing because he seems to be quite taken with one of the ladies dancing in the image. So in my head, in this picture, he was happy to see her, and he was playing his flute for her. You can see a couple little notes, and so his face is a little flushed, and there she is. Maybe it's his future wife. So I took the light flesh color again, number 74, and went over that darker burnt color, and went over the rest of his face too. And I don't like to push too hard with colored pencils if I'm really trying to get skin tone, because you have to kind of go over it and over it and over it. And if it was a bigger area, I probably would have used many other colors too, including greens and blues. But this is for fun. This is for a cartoon-ish looking character. So I thought I'd make him semi-real looking without going overboard and making everybody crazy and making this video last 2 hours long. So yeah, and back to what I was saying before also. When you first put that blush area in, it looks bad. It looks like you ruined it, but you'll see toward the end it looks much better. So don't give up. I wanted to give him slightly Christmassy clothes, even though in the picture he has short sleeves, and his lovely little dancing friend has short sleeves, and it is snowing in the background, but I took some artistic license. So what I did was outline his shirt in a darker red. You know, remember when we were kids, we used to outline everything in coloring books and then fill it in lightly, and it looked really neat. This is sort of the same premise. The color of his shirt, I kind of used, it's almost an orangey red. It's number 2 in the set. And I wanted to give it some dimension. And I didn't want to color it all in at once because I wanted to add some details, meaning maybe a little bit of shadow where the shirt would have a few wrinkles. And so that's why I started with lighter. It's much easier, in my humble opinion, to make it darker than to try to make it lighter after you've already put the dark colors down. Then I went over certain areas with a darker color, with a darker red. I don't know if it's scarlet. There's only a number on here, so it's number 1. And I made it darker around the edges because the body is semi-cylindrical in shape, so you want the center to be a little bit lighter. So it gives the illusion of, dark recedes, light makes things come forward. So you put the dark around the areas that you want to go more into the background. And in this case, the shirt, the sides, the back of the sleeves. Now that is a colorless blender. I think, you know what, I was going to say it's Schpirerr Farben, but I don't remember. I'll have to check and I'll put the information below. But it is my favorite colorless blender. You can see, actually I think it's Prismacolor now that I'm thinking of it. I use it a lot. It's very small, and I like to leave a little bit of texture in clothing, and especially in jeans, and you'll see what I do for that later on. And here are just a few little wrinkles just to make the shirt look a little bit more real and dimensional. That color is number 68. It's a little bit more burgundy, a little bit darker, so it stands out against the rest of the shirt. Oh, that little line that I drew on the bottom, I just thought maybe it would appear like the band on the bottom of a sweater. I use the colorless blender a little bit more. First on his shirt. I left a lot of this in real time. I thought you might want to color along. And then after I went and blended some of the shirt, I went right up to his face and I started to blend with the blender on his face. Now you saw my hand leave the screen for a second. What I did was wipe the tip off. I kind of draw a little bit on a piece of scrap paper because you don't want a color that you've just been blending, especially if it's like a blue or a green and you're going on to a lighter color or a black, or just always try to remember to wipe it off first. I'm just going to speed the rest of this part up. The next part, I'm going to do his pants, and I'm going to do a little experiment. Well, I did do a little experiment because I thought the pants just looked a little bit formal or bland or something. So I decided that I would make the bottom of the pants look like it was cuffed up. Little boys do that often. Moms buy the pants a little big. So what I did was make a square area or a rectangle area and fill it in with a lighter blue than the rest of the pants would be. Although I am going to color the rest of the pants in that color too. I thought that's like a sort of a typical denim color. And denim seems to come in many shades. And even on any specific pair of pants, you see all different colors. So what I'm doing here is I took, which one is this? It's a Uniball Signo white gel pen, and it's a thin size. So I covered the black and I thought I would go over it with the pencil. So because I made the light blue area larger than the rest of the pants because the cuff would look a little bit bigger than the rest of the pants. So I'm taking that blue color. Let me see what it is. Number 61. And just quickly coloring in the rest of his pants. But I am going to go over, because it's denim, with several colors. Denim, I think that if you make denim with just one color, let's say a dark blue, it's going to look more formal, like it's a dress pant. So I went with the medium blue. In this case, it was number 30, and went over the top. I'm going to speed this up too. And because of the tooth of the paper, you can already see that it looks a little bit like denim. There's that light blue in the background, and there's the darker blue on top, which kind of in my head is reminiscent of how denim looks. Denim is a little more coarse than a finer fabric. And I do go in with one more darker color. Is that it right here? Yes. And I go around the perimeter and then over the whole top and eventually blend it all together. I do want to tell you that the weight of the paper matters also. Unless I'm specifically using watercolors, meaning to paint a whole picture, I usually don't print out my images on watercolor paper because it's so thick and it's a little more expensive too. So in this case, this was basically on sketch paper, Strathmore sketch. Here, let me take a picture of this and put this in here so you can see. Here it is. It's Strathmore sketch. It's 100 sheets, 9 by 12, and it's fine tooth surface. And this is only sketch paper, so it's a little bit different than drawing paper. It's not as expensive, not as fancy, and the tooth is really fine. Also, it has a perforation, so you can rip the page out without all the little flyaways from the rings. So back to the picture. That's the darkest blue at this point. And I'm going over very lightly with a really sharpened blender, colorless blender, and just blending the colors together ever so slightly. I don't want to push too hard because I want some of that grain to be left from the paper showing through, because it makes it look more like denim, in my humble opinion. Okay, you're going to speed this up a little bit, like I said, and just blend it together. I'm not going to show the whole thing because you definitely get the idea of blending. I'm really not doing anything fancy here. Now here, I took the blue, the same blue, and realized, nope, that was not going to work. The gel pen came right off. So I took the gel pen, colored it back in, and figured I would let it dry. And then I thought, I'm going to have to do a second part to this experiment, and it might involve watercolor paints. Now here comes an instance that was a little surprising. I wanted to give him green festive shoes, and those came out a little bit too alien green for me. And then on top of that, I wanted to make it almost like he had sort of like, not patent leather, what am I trying to say? Like loafers on. And I made this little design on it. It kind of looked more like a ballet shoe. So I figured, well, I'm going to have to work this out because I can't erase the whole thing at this point. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll make the bottom of the shoe a little bit darker, and maybe I'll make a little bit of a pattern on it. And then I thought, well, a green shoe is really not going to have too much of a pattern. So I kind of figured I'm just going to walk away from this part for a second, and we will get back to it a little bit later. Because sometimes something I think is a disaster, if I stop looking at it, I look back at it later, it's not so bad. Now the flute, I figured was going to be a regular silver flute. And since it's tiny, I just took a very dark gray. Let me see what number that was. number 54, and I made one line going through it, and then I made the end of the flute opened. And I left the other end the way it is just because of the direction that you would be looking at the flute. So I thought that just that one little gray line gave it an indication of almost looking silver. And, looking back at it, I probably could have added some vertical lines, but it's okay. It looks flutish. Now here's the part in almost all my drawings where I start to go back and forth and touch things up. It kind of looks like it almost could be done, but I take a step back, maybe I walk away sometimes, and I look back and I see things that I really didn't see before if I'm focusing on one area too much. So maybe I thought the pants could be a little bit darker like I just did. I just enhanced the blue. Maybe the shadows could be a little more detailed. I went back with that same burnt orange color. I thought there could be a little bit more shading on his face. When I first started to draw, I've been drawing forever, but when I really started to draw professionally, I really had to get over the fact that I was a little more tentative than probably your average person. I would go a little bit lighter. I would be a little worried that I would screw something up. I had to kind of get over that and just start being a little more bold, because you know what? You're going to make mistakes. I made mistakes. And I said this in one of my other videos. You might as well try to make the mistakes as fast as you can because they're going to happen. So just go for it. So here I looked at the shoes again. They didn't look as bad as I thought. So I made them a little bit darker green, added a little bit of detail, and they're perfectly fine. And they're still green, which is what I wanted in the first place. I wanted him to have a red shirt and green shoes with jeans. So I tried again with the cuff area, and I was not having very good luck. So I couldn't say that I would recommend going over areas with the gel pens and then coloring over them with colored pencil. But I thought, let's give the watercolor paints a shot. So I have this set. It's called Angora Opaque Colors. Let me see how many are in there. 1, 2, 3, 6, 9 times 4. There's 36 really pretty watercolor paints, as you can see. There's a blue on the bottom that pretty much matched the blue that I thought the cuff would look like. So I took my teeny tiny nail brush. Once again, I'll link it below. I added some water. And since I didn't wet the set before because I had no idea that I was going to use watercolors in this set, here's me trying to get enough color on the brush that it would be worth it. So that took about a minute. And then I went over the top of the gel pen and voila, it worked. So although the original experiment didn't work, I think what I'm going to try next time is to go over any areas maybe with white paint and see if you couldn't go over the top of that with colored pencils or even some more paint. So that was worth it in my humble opinion. Once again, I will link those paints below also. So in my head, as I was drawing this little Piper, I thought it would be great fun to, first of all, give him jeans, make him kind of cool, and give him black, shiny Elvis hair. Not exactly, but close. I thought that maybe he, combed his hair because he knew he was going to play the flute for his favorite girl. So all I did was take the black, which is number 33 in the Schpirerr Farben set, and I colored the bottom of each of these waves, and I left a little bit of the white on top. You can also just fill in the whole area and go back in and touch it up with a gel pen or even paint. But when I was drawing his hair initially, I wanted it to have like a very specific kind of curly, wavy look. So I wanted to keep that. I made the point pretty sharp, and I did push pretty hard because I didn't want too much detail. And there's only going to be the black and the white that is going to remain in the area that you don't color it. And I did a little swoop at the very right tip and right there, just to give it some more character and make him look a little bit cuter. This image is not in any of my books, and I took a break from the book that I was working on. The upcoming book is called Spirit Animals, and there's another one after that. And I liked doing this picture so much. Part of me wanted to just stop and do a Christmas or a holiday book, but it was far too late. So maybe next year I will put out a Christmas book. I just had so much fun doing it. So what I did here, I veered away from the set for 2 seconds because I always grab my Luminance white because I just love the way it blends everything in. And I did that with the jeans here. Oh, and I forgot, I did add little pockets. They were really nothing to speak of, just sort of like little curved lines. And I went back in again. Added, I always fuss around at the end, just in case there's any details that I think need to be highlighted. And that's all I'm really doing right now. I used that same gel pen. I kind of liked his sort of just white little eyes. They almost remind me of Peanuts by Charles Schulz. I love that comic, and I have as a child. So, since I was a child. And I added a little bit of white to the top of the flute and a little bit of white at the very top of the hair. I don't think it really did much, but it was fun. Tomorrow's video will feature the Lord a-leaping that is jumping over the drum that got away from the poor little drum major. Right now I'm just blending and fussing around. Oh, you know what? I forgot to tell you when I was doing skin tones. I think skin is hard in general. And I always go back and do it over and over and over. And there's certain areas of the face and on the hands and on the head that are typically darker, but we don't think about it. Hands are hard to draw to begin with. The face is incredibly hard to draw. This is very simple, obviously. But if you're going to draw the hands, oh, right there, I'm just adding some shadows from the bow, which we'll address in another video. But, okay, so the nose area, it's a little bit darker. You don't need a shadow. You don't need to make it brownish, or just take it a little bit darker so that burnt orange color. The tips of the fingers, if you look at your hand right now, no matter what, the tips of your fingers are darker, just like the creases. We're not doing that much detail, so we're going to see the creases, but you'll see at the very end. I don't think you can see it right now because I added it toward the end. Oh, there's his little shoes. I got over it and they were fine. Yeah, the tips of the fingers would be slightly darker. You can see there his nose, his earlobes. So that's something to remember. I kind of regret not giving him enough room to have socks on. I would have given him red and white stripes socks. There's what we did yesterday, the little drummer and his drum, and here's today. So tomorrow, like I said, we'll be doing the Lord a Leaping, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're all well. Thank you so much for being here. I send best thoughts and well wishes to you all. Thanks for joining me. I will talk to you tomorrow. Happy 12 days of Christmas coloring. Bye.